Imagine a criminal empire spanning 22 countries, boasting 2,500 members and raking in a staggering $1 billion annually. Now picture this global juggernaut setting its sights on Denmark, a peaceful nation of 5.8 million. We're talking about the Bandidos Motorcycle Club.
The Bandidos are one of the largest outlaw motorcycle gangs in the world.
The Bandidos are one of the largest motorcycle gangs, or OMGs, in the world. Only the Hells Angels are bigger. These outlaws ride Harleys, traffic drugs, carry weapons, and run prostitution rings.
For decades, they have ruled the Denmark underworld, both in broad daylight and behind the scenes. But why Denmark? What drew this Texas-born brotherhood to Scandinavian shores? Perhaps it was the country's $5 billion annual illicit drug market, or maybe the 10.5% youth unemployment rate, offering a pool of potential recruits. Since their arrival in the region in 1993, the Bandidos have grown from a small chapter to a 1,000-strong force, leaving a trail of violence in their wake. The Nordic biker war, that was just the beginning. Now the Danish government is fighting back, pouring $50 million a year into anti-gang efforts. But can a nation really dismantle an organization with over 300 global chapters?
No, it's going to destabilize it, and somebody else is going to go, hey, I could do that, and somebody else is going to go, well, yeah, but I could do it better than him. And what happens is you create a conflict.
An organization willing to spend $500 per hour on legal fees to protect its interests? As Denmark wages this high-stakes battle, one question looms large. What happens when you challenge a billion-dollar brotherhood? Buckle up. This is a story of crime, power, and a nation's fight for its soul. The birth of a brotherhood, Texas, 1966. The scent of oil and leather fills the air. A group of Vietnam vets, restless and searching for purpose, gather in San Leon. Among them stands Donald Eugene Chambers, a former Marine with fire in his eyes. Little did they know they were about to ignite a global phenomenon. The Bandidos Motorcycle Club was born on March 4th, 1966.
Don Chamber and his friends stopped at a local cantina. Now, it was Don Chambers, man. He is the big boy, El Presidente National back then. He's the one who got all this started.
Just to get together, people that all like one thing, like a bowling club or anything else. In our case, it's motorcycles.
But this wasn't just another biker gang. No, sir. This was the start of something bigger, something that would span continents and strike fear into the hearts of law enforcement worldwide.
Late 60s, early 70s, there was an influx of people coming back from the military that wanted that adrenaline rush that they had, and they wanted to replicate it here, and they also wanted to replicate the camaraderie, the brotherhood that they had with their fellow soldiers in Vietnam.
Fast forward to today. The Bandidos boast over 2,500 members in 22 countries.
2,500 strong, the Bandidos rule the roads in the U.S. and stretch across the globe from Europe to Asia and Australia.
Their annual revenue, a staggering $1 billion, according to a 2023 Department of Justice report. That's right, billion with a B. With 303 chapters spread across the globe, the Bandidos have become a force to be reckoned with. But how did this Texan brotherhood find its way to the peaceful shores of Denmark? Picture this. It's the late 1990s. Denmark, a nation known for its tranquility and prosperity, is about to face a storm. The Bandidos see an opportunity, a market ripe for the taking. With a population of 5.8 million and a booming economy, Denmark was a gold mine waiting to be exploited. The country's illicit substance market alone was estimated to be worth $5 billion annually. The Bandidos smelled blood in the water, and they were circling. But why Denmark? What made this Scandinavian paradise so appealing to a bunch of hardened bikers? The answer lies in a complex interplay of factors. Denmark offered a relatively permissive legal environment compared to other European nations. Its growing economy and strategic location made it an ideal hub for expanding criminal operations. Moreover, the country was facing its own set of challenges. A youth unemployment rate of 10.5% in 2022 created a pool of disillusioned young people, ripe for recruitment. The promise of brotherhood, coupled with the allure of financial rewards, proved irresistible to many. The Bandidos saw an opportunity to exploit these vulnerabilities.
A lot of these guys are unemployed. Their gang is their occupation, it is their job. You might have 2 members that are stealing motorcycles, 2 members that are selling cocaine, a couple of members that are into marijuana.
They offered a sense of belonging, a structured hierarchy, and the promise of financial gain. For many struggling to find their place in society, the Bandidos represented a ticket to a life of excitement and purpose. As the club's influence grew, so did its ability to operate beneath the surface of Danish society. The Bandidos cultivated a public image as a rebellious and countercultural group, amassing over 100,000 followers across various social media platforms. This carefully crafted persona masked the true nature of their activities. The stage was set for a conflict that would shake Denmark to its core. The quiet before the storm was about to end. And the Bandidos? They were just getting started. The Danish Invasion, Denmark, 1993. A new chapter begins. The Bandidos roll into town, small at first but growing fast, like cancer spreading through the body of Danish society.
The Danish chapter of the Bandidos was created in '93.
By the late 90s, all hell broke loose. The Nordic biker war erupts, Bandidos versus Hell's Angels, a clash of titans that would leave Scandinavia reeling. Bodies started piling up. Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark.
Later, a feud between them and a rival's Hell's Angels broke out in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, ending with 11 dead and nearly 100 wounded. Wow.
No country was spared. The violence was unprecedented. A negotiation was done to end the Bicky Wars.
To Europe to end the war over there with the Bandidos and the Hells Angels and the Scandinavian countries. Anybody, you can look up the Scandinavian bike wars. The Scandinavian government petitioned the United States government to allow 2 members of rival clubs to come to the United States so we could negotiate a peace with them. Myself and George Weggers, who was the international leader of the Bandidos, met with them in Washington. It was Blondie from the Hells Angels and Jim from the Bandidos, and we negotiated a peace. There had been, I think, 11 to 14 deaths, 97 wounded. I mean, it was a very serious war. They had a shootout in the international airport. They were shooting rockets into each other's clubhouses.
But the Bandidos, they're just getting started. Fast forward to today, the Danish chapter boasts around 1,000 members.
Det den største bandegruppering i Danmark efter vores opfattelse, og det også den mest voldsparate.
Expensive lifestyle. These guys are required to travel on a regular basis. These guys have to get their money somewhere. They can't just support this off of thin air, and that's where the criminal activity comes in.
Doesn't sound like much? Think again. These aren't your average Sunday riders. These are hardened criminals, drug traffickers, extortionists, arms dealers. The Bandidos' infiltration into Denmark was facilitated by a complex interplay of factors. The club's ability to exploit existing social and economic vulnerabilities within the country played a pivotal role. Disillusioned youth struggling to find purpose and belonging in a rapidly changing society were prime targets for recruitment. The club's hierarchical structure, with its emphasis on loyalty and obedience, provided a sense of stability and identity for many. The promise of a brotherhood, coupled with the financial rewards associated with criminal activities, created a powerful incentive to join. Over time, the Bandidos established a network of contacts and associates, enabling them to expand their operations and solidify their position within the Danish underworld. As the club's power and influence grew, so too did the scope of its criminal activities. Drug trafficking, extortion, and violence became increasingly prevalent.
It's an expensive lifestyle. These guys are required to travel on a regular basis. These guys have to get their money somewhere. They can't just support this off of thin air, and that's where the criminal activity comes in.
The Bandidos' involvement in these illicit enterprises generated substantial profits, allowing the club to invest in its infrastructure, expand its membership, and enhance its reputation as a formidable force. The Danish government is worried, and they should be. The rise of the Bandidos in Denmark posed a significant challenge to law enforcement and government officials. The club's ability to operate beneath the surface of society, coupled with its propensity for violence, made it a formidable adversary. The Danish public, accustomed to a relatively low crime rate, was shocked and alarmed by the increasing levels of criminal activity associated with the Bandidos. But what exactly are the Bandidos up to in Denmark? And why has the government decided to take such drastic action? The answer lies in the shadows, in the dark underbelly of Danish society that most people never see.
Authorities have given no estimate of the number of members of the Bandidos. Police say some 1,200 people in Denmark are members of criminal gangs, which also include groups besides the Bandidos, but does not include informal members.
The criminal empire. Let's talk numbers. Cold, hard cash. The Bandidos' global empire rakes in an estimated $35 million annually. That's not chump change. But where does it come from? Drugs, guns, extortion, you name it, they're in on it. But the Bandidos have a different opinion.
Law enforcement says you guys are nothing but organized crime, that you're a criminal organization. Are the Bandidos a criminal organization?
We do not break the law as a whole. We do not encourage it. You do not have to be a criminal to be a Bandido. We will not take criminals if we know they're criminals. We don't want that reputation.
When you're dealing with them, be aware of what they do, that they carry weapons, that they sell drugs, that they steal motorcycles, that they assault and even kill people.
In Denmark, their tentacles reach far and wide. From the streets of Copenhagen to the quiet suburbs, no place is safe. But it's not just about the money. It's about power, control, fear. The Bandidos have it all, and they're not afraid to use it.
Should have been known to go into a bar and pull somebody out of the bar, or go into a bar and shoot people. If you with one, you with everybody. If you cut one, they all bleed.
Remember the Nordic biker war? That was just the beginning. The Bandidos have been involved in countless violent confrontations since then. Murder, attempted murder, assault, the list goes on.
I think that's all the Bandido lifestyle is about, is criminal activity. There's no other reason to join up with an organization like that.
But here's the kicker. They're not just targeting rival gangs. Innocent civilians are getting caught in the crossfire. The Danish people are scared.
I've been in the inner circle. I've been in the circle, man. People are scared just because of the patch.
And the government, they've had enough.
They want to feel like they can do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, and that society can't tell them what to do, the cops can't tell them what to do.
But taking down an organization like the Bandidos isn't easy. These guys aren't amateurs. They've got lawyers, money, influence. The Bandidos' criminal activities in Denmark are diverse and far-reaching. Drug trafficking forms a significant portion of their revenue. The illicit drug market in Denmark is estimated to be worth $5 billion annually, and the Bandidos have carved out a substantial piece of this pie. But drugs are just the tip of the iceberg. The Bandidos are also heavily involved in extortion rackets, targeting businesses and individuals alike.
Bikers have a notorious reputation as a band of criminals on wheels.
Their reputation for violence makes them particularly effective in this arena. Many victims are too terrified to report the crimes, fearing brutal retaliation. Weapons trafficking is another lucrative venture for the Bandidos. During the Nordic biker war, they were known to have acquired a significant arsenal, including machine guns, rifles, and explosives.
Jeg forklarer Tony helt eksakt, hvem der skal gøre det derinde. Og fortæller ham, at der ikke ret lang tid. Jeg fortæller ham, hvem jeg havde været sammen med. Og jeg var nidkær med at fortælle eksakt, hvor vi havde mødtes med Bandidos medlemmer, også med, hvem der havde været med, hvad der er blevet sagt.
This stockpile not only serves their own needs, but also becomes a source of income as they supply other criminal organizations. The financial impact of the Bandidos' activities on Danish society is staggering. The government estimates that each Danish chapter of the Bandidos generates millions of euros in annual revenue from their criminal enterprises. This illicit wealth allows the gang to invest in legitimate businesses, further blurring the lines between their legal and illegal activities. Moreover, the Bandidos' presence has a chilling effect on local economies. Businesses in areas under their influence often suffer, as people become reluctant to frequent establishments that might be targets for gang violence or extortion. The human cost is even higher. Families torn apart by violence, communities living in fear. The social fabric of Danish society is being strained to its breaking point. So what's a government to do when faced with such a formidable foe? The answer might just change Denmark forever. The Danish authorities have realized that traditional law enforcement methods are not enough to combat an organization as sophisticated and entrenched as the Bandidos. They've begun to employ more aggressive tactics: asset seizures, increased surveillance, tougher sentencing for gang-related crimes. But will it be enough? The Bandidos have proven remarkably resilient in the face of previous crackdowns. The stage is set for a showdown. On one side, a government determined to restore peace and security to its citizens. On the other, a criminal organization that has shown time and again that it will stop at nothing to protect its interests. The battle for Denmark's future is about to begin, and the stakes, they couldn't be higher. The government strikes back. Enough is enough. That's what the Danish government decided.
Bandernes uvæsen hører ikke hjemme i Danmark, men
Denmark wants court to dissolve the Danish arm of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, citing violence. So in Copenhagen, Denmark, Denmark's government said Wednesday it wants a court to formally dissolve the Danish arm of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, citing the group's violent behavior. Under Denmark's constitution, an organization that promotes or incites violence can be dissolved by court order, they say there.
But how do you take down an organization as powerful as the Bandidos?
På den ene side er det nogle frihedselskende, bikerelskende outlaws, som bryster sig af at tilhøre samfundets 1%, den 1%, der går imod normer og konventioner. Og på den anden side er der heller ikke nogen tvivl om, at det er en organisation, som har begået rigtig meget kriminalitet på tværs af landegrænser gennem flere årtier.
Ja, vi lever i frit land. Ja, vi lever i frit land. Det sker med en viser jo frit der, mand.
It's not like you can just ask them nicely to leave. No, this calls for something drastic, something unprecedented. Enter the Danish Constitution. Article 78, to be precise. It allows for the dissolution of organizations that promote or incite violence.
Det tidligere lykkedes at opløse gadebanden Loyal to Familia.
Det lykkedes blandt andet, fordi at Loyal to Familia modsat Hells Angels Bandidos ikke kan fremvise, at de har klubhuse og et fællesskab omkring at køre motorcykel.
Grupperingen Loyal to Familia, eller LTF, opstod i 2012 med målet om at blive den største gadebande nogensinde. Men selvom myndighederne lykkes med at forbyde LTF, er det dog en lidt anden sag, når det kommer til Bandidos.
The government's plan? Use this article to completely dismantle the Bandidos, wipe them off the map. But here's the catch. It's never been done before. Not on this scale. The legal battles are intense. The Bandidos aren't going down without a fight. Their lawyers are working overtime, charging a whopping $500 per hour. Meanwhile, the government is pouring resources into the fight. $50 million annually to combat gang activity. Another $10 million for public awareness campaigns. But is it enough? Can a government really take down an organization as entrenched as the Bandidos? The Danish government's decision to crack down on the Bandidos was a bold and risky move.
Altså det, der bliver opgaven for myndighederne i forhold til at forbyde Bandidos, det er at bevise, at det er en forening, der virker ved vold og kriminalitet. Bandidos, de kan reelt fremvise, prøv at høre her, vi har de her klubhuse, Vi har de her foreningsreferater. Det kan være, at der er nogle enkelte, der begår kriminalitet. Det er ikke alle, der er Guds bedste børn, men det betyder ikke, at vi er en forening, der har til sigte at begå kriminalitet og virke ved vold.
The club's reputation for violence and its ability to retaliate against those who oppose it created a climate of fear. Law enforcement officers faced the constant threat of violence, and witnesses were often reluctant to come forward. Despite these challenges, the government pressed ahead with its plan.
The measure took effect immediately, meaning members of the group cannot use their clubhouses, hold meetings, or wear their insignias.
A series of high-profile arrests and seizures of assets, worth an estimated $50 million, sent a clear message to the Bandidos that their reign was coming to an end.
Det vil vi sætte en stopper for med en hård og kontant plan.
Der blandt andet fordobler straffen for voldskriminalitet og overtrædelser af våbenloven i forbindelse med bandeopgør, samtidig med, at politiet får 50 millioner kroner til at opretholde en ny enhed ved navn Task Force Øst.
However, the club proved to be resilient. Through a combination of intimidation, bribery, and legal challenges, the Bandidos fought back, delaying the government's efforts to dismantle the organization. The legal battleground became a crucial front in the war against the Bandidos. Lawyers for the government worked tirelessly to build a case that would withstand scrutiny in court. The club, in turn, employed a team of experienced legal professionals to challenge the government's actions at every turn. The legal fees associated with these battles amounted to millions of euros, highlighting the financial stakes involved in the conflict. The government's crackdown on the Bandidos sparked a heated debate within Danish society. Supporters of the crackdown argued that the club posed a serious threat to public safety and that decisive action was necessary to restore order. They emphasized the importance of protecting vulnerable communities from the violence and exploitation perpetrated by the Bandidos. On the other hand, opponents of the crackdown expressed concerns about the potential for human rights abuses and the erosion of civil liberties. They argued that the government's tactics were disproportionate and that the focus should be on addressing the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to gang-related crime.
Du kan ikke køre på et konstant højt leje, hvor du bekriger hinanden konstant. Det er dårligt for de kriminelle forretninger, for narkosalget, og så er det dyrt at være sådan en konflikt. Derfor så har du noget fredstid, men det betyder jo ikke, at banderne forsvinder. Så den nuværende bandekonflikt har ikke nogen slutdato. Det er en permanent.
The media played a crucial role in shaping public opinion. Sensationalized coverage of the Bandidos' activities contributed to a climate of fear, while sympathetic portrayals of the club's members humanized them and generated public support. The debate over the Bandidos became a microcosm of broader societal divisions, reflecting the complex and often contradictory attitudes towards crime, justice, and the role of government. The answer lies in a surprising place, within the Bandidos themselves. Are you ready to see how the Brotherhood begins to crumble from within? The government's relentless pressure was about to expose cracks in the once impenetrable facade of the Bandidos. And those cracks, they were about to blow wide open. The Brotherhood betrayed loyalty. It's the foundation of any brotherhood. But what happens when that foundation starts to crack? As the pressure mounted, some Bandidos started to crack. The prospect of long prison sentences looms large. The constant threat of violence takes its toll. And then, the unthinkable happens. Bandidos started turning on each other.
That on one occasion, a deceased Bandidos was dug up in the middle of the night at a Sistens cemetery in Copenhagen. The dead man's vest with the back tag and other biker symbols had been removed from the grave. The reason, it had emerged that he had identified two members of Bandidos to the police as the perpetrators of the shooting of witnesses to a bank robbery.
Defectors emerged. They spilled their guts to the authorities. Names, dates, criminal activities, everything. It was a goldmine for law enforcement. With a 70% conviction rate based on these testimonies, the Bandidos' days seem numbered. But betraying the Brotherhood comes at a price, a steep one. Retaliation is swift and brutal. not just against the defectors, but their families too. As the pressure mounted, the once solid facade of the Bandidos began to crack. The allure of freedom and a new life proved too tempting for some members. Faced with the prospect of lengthy prison sentences and the constant threat of violence, a number of Bandidos decided to cooperate with law enforcement. These defectors provided invaluable information about the club's inner workings, its criminal activities, and the identities of key players. Their testimonies helped to build stronger cases against the Bandidos and to dismantle the organization from within.
The Bandidos' top leaders.
Bandidos gang have been arrested. Guns, drugs, and more.
However, turning against the club was a dangerous gamble. Those who betrayed the Brotherhood faced the risk of retaliation, both for themselves and their loved ones. The decision to cooperate with authorities was often a painful one. Many former Bandidos struggled with guilt and remorse, haunted by the violence and criminal activities they had been involved in. Their testimony not only helped to bring down the club, but also served as a powerful reminder of the destructive consequences of gang membership. The Bandidos' intricate network, built over years, provided a solid foundation for resistance. Retaliation against informants, intimidation of witnesses, and even acts of violence against law enforcement became commonplace. The club's ability to leverage its resources, estimated at over $100 million, and influence to undermine the government's efforts, posed a significant challenge. The question is it worth it? Is bringing down the Bandidos worth the cost in blood and broken lives? And more importantly, what happens when the dust settles? When the Bandidos are gone, who or what will fill the void they leave behind?
Hvis det lykkes at forbyde Bandidos, så vil man gå efter Hells Angels. Så effekten vil formentlig være større, når vi snakker om Hells Angels og Bandidos og bander, der har klubhuse, end når vi snakker om gadebander som Loyal to Familia. Det er ikke utænkeligt, at det vil betyde, at Bandidos dage er talte i Danmark.
The answers to these questions will shape the future of Denmark, and possibly the future of organized crime in Europe. The betrayal of the Bandidos Brotherhood marked a turning point in the government's efforts to dismantle the organization. But it also opened up a Pandora's box of new challenges and ethical dilemmas. As more members turned informant, the Bandidos' leadership became increasingly paranoid and violent. The club's internal structure began to crumble under the weight of suspicion and fear. But even as the organization weakened, the danger it posed to Danish society remained very real. The government's use of informants and plea bargains to build cases against the Bandidos sparked a heated debate about the ethics of such tactics. Critics argued that offering leniency to criminals in exchange for testimony was a dangerous precedent that could undermine the integrity of the justice system. Supporters, on the other hand, contended that these methods were necessary to combat sophisticated criminal organizations like the Bandidos. They pointed to the success rate of convictions based on insider testimony as proof of the strategy's effectiveness. The stage was set for the final act in the drama of the Bandidos in Denmark. But would it be a triumphant victory for law and order? Or the opening salvo in a new and even more dangerous chapter of organized crime in the country? The endgame. The writing's on the wall. The Bandidos' days in Denmark are numbered, but the fight isn't over yet, far from it. The Danish government has succeeded in dismantling much of the Bandidos' infrastructure. Their leadership is in shambles. Their criminal enterprises are crumbling. After years of intense effort, the authorities have made significant headway against this once invincible organization. Through a combination of law enforcement actions, legal battles, and the cooperation of former members, the club's power has been severely diminished. The government's investment of $50 million annually in anti-gang efforts is finally paying off. High-profile arrests and asset seizures, totaling an estimated $50 million, have dealt crippling blows to the Bandidos' operations. After years of intense effort, the authorities have made significant headway against this once invincible organization. Through a combination of law enforcement actions, legal battles, and the cooperation of former members, the club's power has been severely diminished. The government's investment of $50 million annually in anti-gang efforts is finally paying off. High-profile arrests and asset seizures, totaling an estimated $50 million, have dealt crippling blows to the Bandidos operations.
Det er ikke utænkeligt, at det vil betyde, at Bandidos dage er talte i Danmark.
The lure of easy money and brotherhood is as strong as ever. And let's not forget, the Bandidos aren't just a Danish problem. They're a global organization with over 2,500 members across 22 countries. What's to stop them from regrouping? From coming back stronger? The battle against the Bandidos in Denmark is more than just a fight against one motorcycle gang. It's a battle for the soul of a nation. The government's efforts have exposed deep-seated societal issues that go beyond organized crime. The public debate rages on. Some argue that the crackdown has gone too far, infringing on civil liberties. Others insist it hasn't gone far enough. The media, once sensationalizing the Bandidos' exploits, now grapples with the complex aftermath of their downfall. Law enforcement agencies remain vigilant. They know that the void left by the Bandidos could be filled by other criminal organizations. The $5 billion annual illicit substance market in Denmark is still a powerful lure for organized crime. Will Denmark emerge victorious? Or will the specter of organized crime continue to haunt its streets? One thing's for certain, the war isn't over.
Men det at forbyde en organisation betyder jo ikke, at medlemmerne forsvinder. Så når du forbyder sig en bande, så er der jo en stor risiko for, at bandemedlemmerne bare siver ud i nogle andre kriminelle grupperinger, eller at de fortsætter deres broderskab, som tilfældet er med LTF.
It's just entered a new phase. The government's 10 million public awareness campaign continues, aimed at preventing the next generation from falling into the trap of gang life. And as for the Bandidos, well, they might be down, but don't count them out just yet. After all, they didn't become one of the world's most notorious motorcycle gangs by giving up easily. Their global network, spanning from Texas to Australia, with 303 chapters worldwide, remains a potential threat. The story of the Bandidos in Denmark is far from over. It's just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter that will be written in the coming years. By the government, by the people of Denmark, and yes, by the Bandidos themselves. The lessons learned from this conflict will shape Denmark's approach to organized crime for years to come. The legal precedents set, the tactics developed, the societal issues exposed, all will play a role in future efforts to combat criminal organizations. So, what do you think? Is this the end of the Bandidos in Denmark, or just the calm before the next storm? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be one hell of a ride. The battle against organized crime is never truly over. It evolves, adapts, and continues.
Whether society wants to admit it or come to terms with it, there has to be stability in the underworld. Somebody's got to run it. And people have to come to terms with that fact. You know, they have this moral dilemma. You know, they think that, you know, we're going to get rid of this organization and everything's going to be gone. The crime's going to be gone. The drugs are going to be gone.
And Denmark? Well, they've shown they're up for the fight. As the dust settles on this chapter of Denmark's battle against the Bandidos, one question remains. What's next? For the government, for the people, and for those who might be tempted to fill the void left by the Bandidos.
No, it's going to destabilize it, and somebody else is going to go, hey, I could do that, and somebody else is going to go, well, yeah, but I could do it better than him. And what happens is you create a conflict.
The end game may be approaching for the Bandidos in Denmark, but the war against organized crime, that's a battle that never truly ends. It just changes form. And Denmark will need to be ready for whatever comes next.